when I prepared this talk, I thought I would love to be able to read minds and know what V8 is for each of you. I think we might be in with for some surprises, but I don't read minds, so I don't know. I think it originally, when we started the whole thing years ago, it came from that quote, and it was about making Umbraco simpler, out of frustration when we were building websites, yet enabling more complex things, integrating other apps, etc., etc. On the topic of simplicity, brief parenthesis. I don't know if you know this guy. This guy is the author of Clojure, which is a very weird programming language. He's given a talk in 2011, which is called Simple Made Easy, and if you Google for these words, you will find it. And it's worth having a look at it because he has very interesting things to say about the relationship between doing simple things and easy things. He says things like that. So his point is basically we should aim at making things simple, but simplicity is not always easy. And the things that you feel are easy maybe are not going to be simple. Think about doing a multilingual site with Voto. That's what easy. And then it turns out into a giant mess. Doing things simple may take more time. Which brings us back to that one. Trying to explain the roadmap, which is taking time. But I'm going to give you a brief update on what happened since Code Garden. So at Code Garden, we had two things. First, we demoed what I called MVVP. So an MVP is a minimum viable product, and the B in MVVP is barely. So we had prototypes, especially for variants that were like put together the night before. And then we had the huge task of V8. Like 4 years of expectation on our side and on your side, and what is V8, what are we going to do? We had a giant backlog and we were basically drowned into ideas and had no idea on how to do things and when to release things. What we've done ever since, we've turned much of that code into production ready, so we can now use everything we've demoed and it's stable and it works. So we've done a lot of works since June to make things were stable, production ready. And the second thing is we've scoped V8. So we went through an exercise, and I've tried to illustrate on this beautiful picture. It's basically deciding that we now have a process for V8, so it's not just a dream. We want to deliver things, and things is one part of that infinite backlog. It doesn't mean we're sacrificing parts. The core things that we wanted to do are in V8, that were done already, basically. But the list of ideas kept growing and growing, and we had to stop at one point. So that's what we've done. So now we know where we're going, we know what we are doing. We don't have the exact date of that nice bubble here, but we know it's on our roadmap pretty soon. To do this exercise, we've created tracks. So here I'm going to repeat what Neil said, but basically we have the editor's track, which is the editing experience, like the back office. And this is why we're working currently on making sure that everything we demoed at Code Garden for multilingual works. That's the back office, so you can use and create websites. Then we have the partners track, which is partners is not the right word here. It's more site building, front-end experience, the whole ecosystem, cloud, deploy, forms, etc. And the last one is the contributors part, which is packages, starter kits, people who want to create property editors, etc. This helps us to figure out what each people are, or persona, as we call it. That's very trendy. What are they expecting from V8, and what can we deliver in a short time frame that makes everyone happy? How are we going to deliver this? Are we going to create alpha, beta, preview? Problem is, some of you probably know that I announced an alpha a year ago, and also an alpha 2 years ago. So we're going to simplify this. By the way, I don't know if you know exactly what's the difference between an alpha and a preview and a beta and an RC. So what we're going to do is preview builds. So it's basically a public build of V8 that we think is stable enough. That will come with release notes saying this part works, this part don't try it. This is what to expect from it. The next one will have this and that. So of course, when will you see the first public build? Well, the official answer until this morning was when it's ready. But apparently it's been announced that it was end of this month. Anyways, no, that's joking, but it's our main priority. So the big message here is that the focus that we have at the moment is really releasing something because we want to release it, we want to be able to use it. The rest will come later, but we want to have a public version now. And it may come, sooner than expected. The general feeling we have as the development team is that we're getting our head out of the water. We're not drowned into everything. We have a plan, we know where we're going now. And we've actually started developing with Umbraco V8, like creating actual websites and try to use it to see how the whole thing works and feel the excitement. And guess what? I made a website for you. So I'm going to demo a website. The origin of this website is a few tweets from people saying that having Umbraco festivals was a bit like it was funny, but it was hard to sell to your boss, especially if it happens in Florida. They wanted a conference, so I've done a conference website. So we're going to go to the conference website. I think it looks way more like conferencey, and you totally can sell this to your boss. It is originally a US initiative, so the website is purely monolingual, so it's a traditional website. It has, find the mouse, so it has pages, a lot of important words, I don't understand them, and also very serious pictures. So page item, what I call focus items here, is leverage and efficiency gains. This is an actual text that I copied from the internet. And then we have these annoying European guys who say, well, we want to have our own version of that site. So can you create a multilingual version of that site? So copy of it. That's going to be a trimmed down version, and we want it to be one-to-one. So we've done it. So we have a menu, which is a hamburger menu. And so I can go to the French version of the site, which is basically a one-to-one. So it's not a one-to-one with the American. The American one is going to be a very complex one with a lot of pages. So it's a normal site like we do with version 7. And then we have a multilingual for French, Germany, Denmark. So you have the Danish one. All the texts have been translated by Google Translate. I can see Neil's laughing. I know it doesn't mean anything. And I also have like the German page somewhere here. On the German page, there is one thing I want you to look at. I don't know if you notice, but the focus items are in French. So I will explain that later on, but just put it somewhere in your mind. My beautiful site, the German page has French content. Yep, that's it. So we're going to hook into the back office and see how the whole thing is put together. So I'm going to log into this. Yeah, my password is 1 letter. Don't do it. So the first thing for people who have never looked into V8 is the menu bar that is on the left. Version 7 has moved up to the top. So we're basically moving cheese here just to make the experience better. There is a massive improvement, a huge change. I don't know if you can see it from here. If you look at the menu bar, you'll see content, media, settings, users, members, and forms. So something is gone. We finally have removed the developers one, and it's all in settings. That was, I think, a requirement of version 6 point something, so it's done now. My tree here, well, I have multilingual content. As soon as I enable some multilingual content, my tree becomes multilingual. So up there, I have a selector, so I can view my tree for the different languages that exist. So I can say, can you show me the Danish tree? Or can you show me the German tree? It's only changing the names of the nodes. Can you show me the English tree? And here you can see that, or maybe you can't see, I hope you can see. No, you can't see. the English name is grayed out because English is not published. So basically, the tree it knows about the cultures, and it can give you whether it's edited, draft, published, or whatever, exactly what you have in version 7, but per culture. Now, if we look at one page, like that one, more moving cheese, where are my tabs? My tabs are gone. Tabs are replaced with an accordion here, so it's a different editing experience. Whether it is perfect or not, I know that we still have some user experience work in progress to make sure it's nice. But anyways, this is the new way it works. Now if I go to the international tree here, so I can open, the English page, the American page has a team page, a news page, so it's this view. This is basically what you have today. If I go to the international one, you'll see something different. Up there, the name of the page has a drop down because I have multiple versions of that page, one for English, one for French, one for Danish. If I change the main tree, I say bring the main tree to Danish, the whole thing changes. My page is in Danish on the right. If I go back to English, the main tree, I can change it only for this part. Like say, I actually want to see Danish here, or English, or German, or whatever. Now, I may want to translate the English version. I'm building the Danish page, and I need to translate or correct my translation, which is obviously totally wrong. So I can decide to open them side by side, like that, and I have the two versions, the English and the Danish one, side by side, and I can edit one or edit the other. I wanted to show you the list view too. So this is the list view of all my use items, say. So here it feels totally natural, but you have to imagine everything that happens in the background. Like the name you see here is the Danish name for that news item. So if I go to French, I'm going to see the French name for these news items. I can sort by name, and it works. Like these views totally work. So everything you did with one language, you can do with multiple languages. It's all, we modified everything, the list views, the pickers, the whatever you can think of, just works. It took quite some time to actually do it, so that's why I'm mentioning it. I'm going to delete that one. And we're going to create a new item, a new international use item. So I'm going to say that in English it says hello. It has a title. It's published today, right now. It has a text, and I'm going to pick an image. So here we're going into what Niels has presented, which was infinite editing. So if I want to upload an image now, I can upload an image now. I don't have to go back to the media library, lose what I'm currently doing. So we are improving the global flow of editing. I'm not going to edit the image upload the image now. I'm just going to pick one that exists, say that one. But I could decide to edit that one, like modify something, like modify the crop position or whatever. If I save here, what I'm saving is the image, so I'm modifying the image. And actually I can even go further down, look at the image for, at the media type for the image, and I can open the media type just to look how it is structured, etc., etc., etc. You have to stop at one point, otherwise it becomes a bit crazy. But the flow is way more fluent that way. Let's pick our image. So here I have my English version, and I have an image, some text, etc. And I want to do also the French version in a split view. What you can see here, so I'm going to put the name, the title, but the date is already here. That's because the date I have decided it's not multilingual. Date is invariant, it's the day the thing was published. So it's common, and the photo is the same. The photo basically is already there in French because it comes from English. That's the same one, and if I change it, it's going to change for every language. I'm going to put some text also in French. And save. So this is the new save menu. When you save a multilingual thing, one thing to have in mind, if you're not multilingual, nothing changes. Like you click save and it does the version 7 thing, like save dot. But if you're multilingual, you can say, I want to save these two languages, and the others two, Danish and German, I have opened them. They don't have a name, they don't exist. There's no Danish version, there's no German version at all. Go save. Then I can say, please publish. And for publish, it's the same. I want to publish only the French version, I can select those that I want to publish. One thing that we don't have here but that exists is that we can define some languages as being mandatory. So if a language is mandatory, you have to publish it. So if like English were mandatory, I can't publish my content without English. You can't have a French version without the English version because it's mandatory. But here, I can do what I want, so I'm going to publish only the French version. And there it is. I can preview what I've done. So I'm previewing the English culture because I was on the English version here. But I could preview the French version or any other version. Another thing is preview works. Well, I mean, it worked in version 7, but if you've tried to use it on large sites, you may have encountered weird issues because it takes a lot of memory. It works quite well in version 8. And if I change the text here, hello world, I'm going to save it. Save the English. So now it knows that I have modified English. There's no point saving the other languages. They haven't been modified. So I'm going to only save English. That's a fail. In theory, that page updates. And you see hello world here. Okay, table failed. Sorry? I changed the text. It works. It actually works. Okay, let's try it again. It looks like a simple thing, but it means that whenever you update something, you can immediately preview and see what happens. And I've realized that even on my small blog site, basically I have the two windows open and I type text, and when I want to see how it looks, I just save and I see it. If you try to do this in version 7, it's too slow. As an editor, I don't want to do this because it takes time to refresh. On version 8, it's immediate, and the more I use it, the more I have my site and my editor open both at the same time, and I keep switching from one to the other. So basically what we said is that preview is instant now, plus it's dynamic, multilingual, etc., etc., etc. Back to the back, I'm going to exit preview. Back to the back office. So the whole thing about languages, I'm going to show you the new or improved language menu, because we have new things in there. These are the languages that I have defined for my site. The first column you see default is one of them has to be the default one. That's it. The second one is mandatory, and I have briefly mentioned it. Languages that are mandatory, well, you can't publish something if the language is not there. So you could decide my site has to have English, otherwise you can't publish it. Of course, if English is mandatory, you might think, I'm going to publish English and French, and then unpublish English. So I have French published. But unpublishing English is going to also remove French. So no, you've decided you can't have that content without English, so if you try to unpublish a mandatory language, everything goes away. And the last one is fallback. It's what happens if the value is not available for that language. So here you can see that the German language is configured to fall back to French, and that explains why on my German page for the focus blog it was in French, because I did not enter any data on the German page. So it's falling back to French because it's configured here. We'll come back to fallback later. Last thing I want to show you on the back of this is, okay, so this is the list view. You can see, I can see the child items up there, the content and the info up right. I don't know if you've noticed that when I go to my homepage, I have another one which is notes, which has appeared. It's only on that one. Like if I go to my team page, I don't have it. So it only appears on some content types. And what it is, it's actually a note talking app that I put together. So it's basically, I can take notes like, hello. And if I go back to another page, I come back to my original page, skipping notes, so I can remember what to do later on. This is what we call a content app, what Niels explained. This is a very stupid one. I stored in local storage, so it's only for me. It's probably totally useless. But it took me like 5 minutes to do it, and I'm going to show you how I did it. And the thing to remember here is that the content app, which is the big thing that appears in the middle, I did on purpose display this here. This basically is the unique identifier of the content that I am editing. This is just to say that the content app has access to the whole Angular context of the application. So it can do anything. It knows which content you're currently editing, so you could use it to do something. It can access the property values. It can, anything is possible. So that's the new way to inject things into the back office. People were trying to do this in version 7 with weird property editors that would start injecting things here and there, but that was ugly. We now have an official way to inject things in the back office. Hopefully more clever things than what I've done, but nevertheless. Okay, I'm going to go back to my slides. So what we've seen is what we call variants, but that's basically multilingual. That is basically built in. So if you were very proud of wasting a week or two setting up Portal, well, you have a replacement that just works. We've seen infinite editing, which is basically a better flow for your editors. They just follow the path instead of going back and forth between sections. We've seen content apps, and content apps for us is we have ideas, like we're currently building one for forms. It could be Google Analytics, it could be anything. The most interesting part is what you're going to do with it, because it's basically opening all sorts of weird things in the back office. We're really waiting to see what you're going to do with it. The next thing that you haven't done in the demos is the next-gen code or whatever. It's part of the what we call the big code cleanup. So in V8, you've seen the new features, that the first slides. Well, I consider code being a feature. It's, if you've looked at Umbraco in the past, there are many ways to do the same thing, like trying to figure out how to render a field. There are probably 3, 4, 5 different ways to do it, depending on which revision of the documentation you're using. So lots of code cleanup, and we're going to look at rendering views, like the most basic thing you do when you create websites. This is how I do it. This is using Models Builder. It's basically strongly typed properties, and it just works. One thing to say, this is the other way to do it. That would be the more traditional way. This is replacing everything else. So Umbraco field is gone. Get property value is gone. Render, control, page, whatever is gone. Web forms control are gone. Everything. So there's only one way to get a value now. It's to do this thing. A brief thing about Models Builder. What you've the previous slide. Models Builder is only channeling the property to these methods. Models Builder is not adding any caching or clever logic or whatever to on top of Umbraco. It's only redefining the property, so you don't have to use the magic strings that are there. So there's no overhead in using a Models Builder class. The value can be strongly typed, so if you know it's going to be a date, you can strongly type it to a date, and then you have access to all the .NET properties of a date. We've improved models generation and models builder. We try to be more clever. If you have an image picker in version 7, it's going to create a property like photo here, and it's going to be an iPublish content because a picker can pick many things. We don't know what it picks, so it's going to be an iPublish content. In version 8, if you have an image picker, we know it's going to pick an image. So photo here is going to be a strongly typed image thing, and it has all the properties of an image, like height, width, source path, whatever, etc. It's a very small thing, it's a very simple thing, but it means whenever you're creating views, instead of having to cast whatever you get to the proper type, etc., you just use it. It's just making things simpler. Another simple thing we've done when creating views, this is basically how I render the focus items that you've seen on the page. It's a nested content thing. A few things to notice here. I'm not testing whether model.focus is null or not. Because in version 8, the property value converters can handle null situation. Like if you don't specify a value, we're going to ask the converter, what should it be? And in our case, the converter is going to say an empty enumeration, because I don't have a value. So it's not null, it's an empty enumeration. Again, it's a very small thing, but in many views, if you look at version 7, you're going to see some if code, if blah, blah, blah is not null, whatever. You don't need it anymore. Another thing you don't have in version 7 is focus is an enumeration of whatever has been set in the nested content. Usually that's an iPublish content. It's not strongly typed. In version 8, it's all strongly typed if we can. Like if you are going to set only one type of things in nested content, what you get is an enumeration of that strongly typed thing, which means you can do item.title, item.text, and it's all going to work. And if photo is an image, item.photo.url. I think the big idea here is we're trying to make sure that rendering a view is simple, like not ask you to deal with null values or weird values or magic strings or all that type of thing, because it's way faster to do it that way. Yep. So that one, I was very proud of it. This is how we managed to do the strongly typed nested content thing, but it's okay. That one is how we manage cultures. This is how I create the hamburger menu. So a new thing in version 8 is that every content item has a cultures property, which basically defines all the cultures that exist on that item. So I don't know if you're familiar with that syntax. It's called deconstruction. It's something that appeared in C# 7.2, I think. So it's basically cultures is a dictionary, and the keys are going into the culture variable and the values into the infos variable. It's just simple to work that, to write that code. And for each content item, I can get the URL for a given culture. Like give me the URL for French, German, etc. And for each property, I can say, give me the value of title, but for that specific culture. So if you don't do it, if you use the normal version 7 syntax, it's not for a specific culture, but if you specify a culture, it's going to get that value. I don't think you're going to use that a lot, apart from creating menus or redirections to other languages. Nevertheless, it works. And it works for all types of syntaxes, so you can do it for the first one, you've just seen it. Give me the title in French, give me the title as a string in French, and the last one is how you do it if you're using Models Builder and you don't want to use magic strings. So it's give me the title in French for the strongly typed model. If I don't specify a culture, then what happens? If I remove a culture and the thing is multilingual, what we use is the current culture. So if the page is English, because we use the English hostname and we know we are rendering the English site, we're going to pick the English value. If the site is the French one, because we have the French hostname and we pick the French version, then you're going to have the French value. So if you're creating a website, on most pages you're going to do it exactly the way you did it with version 7. Say, display my title. And it's going to pick the title in the right language. Only on a few occasions you're going to say, I want the title, but only the German one. You're going to use that syntax. But in most cases you don't care. You just render title and it works. Now that German thing about falling back to another language. This will be the syntax to say, give me the value of the focus property, and if you don't have it, then fall back to another language, assuming one has been specified. You can fall back to another language. You can fall back to ancestors. That's basically recursing, as we do today in version 7, where you say walk up the tree and try to find a value. You can fall back to a default value, say give me the value, and if it's not there, use that default value. Of course, you've got to specify it. You can fall back to a chain of things. You can say, please fall back to another language, but if you can't find a value, please walk up the tree. That's what it would do. The way the whole thing works is we've introduced something which we call the I-published value fallback, because we love big interface names. It's basically whenever you're going to try to get a value and it's not there, we're going to call that interface and say, can you help? So for that content item, that culture, that property alias, we don't have a value, can you help? So we have a built-in implementation that's going to look at other languages or look up the tree. But you can write your own that, I don't know, goes to Google and try to find some content. That would be horrible for performances, but it could work by anything. Your own logic and try to supply a value that hasn't been put there by the editor. So it's not exactly only for multilingual. If you even have a non-multilingual site, you're trying to get a value, it's not there, you can have your own implementation there that tries to do something. Return a nice message saying, sorry, we don't have a price, or whatever. Content apps. So yeah, the idea was to show you how content apps were working and how I built the notes one that you've seen. I have written 0 C# code for the content app. It's all done in JavaScript. It's all registered in a package manifest in app plugins. So I don't know how many of you know what a package manifest is, but it's if you drop a file in app plugins somewhere, it tells Umbraco to load some things into the packages. So you can register more property editors, you can register JavaScript files, you can register tons of things that will be loaded at runtime. So I basically have registered some JavaScript files and a content app. The JavaScript file is pretty easy. It's basically get me a controller, an Angular controller for my view. Simple. And this is how I register the content app. It has an alias that has to be unique for whatever reason. It has a name, that's what it shows in the UI. It has an icon, so a nice thing you've seen. A view, which is the big part that's going to appear on the right. And some show thing. So these things, if you remove them, it's going to appear everywhere. Like on every content item, it's going to be there. But then you have some sort of rule mechanism that will be documented that tells, I want it on content items for homepage US, and I want it on content items for homepage international. And it's not going to appear on any other content item. You can use wildcards, things like that. So you're going to specify where you want it to appear. I'm not going to show you the HTML or the JS files. There are like 10 lines. It's one text area and one save to local content, local storage, and get it from local storage. What I'm saying is this is pure JavaScript, fairly easy. You're not modifying Umbraco, you're not writing C# code, and you have a content app that could, I don't know, hook into Google Analytics and gather some data and display graphs right into the back office, or manage, I don't know, if you're interfacing with another app. It's mentioned interfacing with SAP. If you want, you can do it via etc. You can, of course, write C# code if you love it. So it's all defined via an interface that defines a content app, and it's going to be called anytime we display a content item. Say, do you have a content app for me? If it returns null, it says no, but I have nothing. If it returns a content app object that has an icon, a view, etc., it's going to render. So you can customize almost item per item. What is it that's going to appear there? An interesting thing to note here is that what we are passing to the content app is an object. It's not a content item. It's an object because it could be a media. And ideally, at the moment, it works for content and media, but it could work for pretty much anything else we edit in Umbraco. So eventually you could edit anything and ask, do you have a content app for me? But that's for content app. The big question now is what will people do with them? I think tons of things, but we're really waiting. Okay. Things I haven't mentioned in details. That one, because we've done it tons of times, so I don't want to talk about it anymore. The good thing to note is that for people who've tried to use the application during hackathons, who've installed it, they've reported issues with the back office, saying it doesn't really work, etc. I think so far we've got 0 issues on Ucache, like the whole caching layer just works. That's done. I'm not going to go deep into dependency injection because, again, that's a low-level thing. But it answers needs from people. How can you make Umbraco extensible in a simple way? So with dependency injection, we are making things way simpler. And part of the simple approach is, for example, we've decided to use one container for dependency injection, which is light inject. So we have dependency injection with light inject. It works quite well. It's quite simple to use. It does what we want it to do. Fine. Now, some people have said, yeah, but you can't switch it and use another one, and I want to use my own, whatever. The point of core is we're not going to do it, basically. So it's light inject. But one crazy guy, Lars Erik, is doing it. We're going to probably merge what he's doing. So probably you will be able to switch light inject to something else because community wants it. But we had to draw a line on what we could do within a reasonable time frame. I haven't talked about components. Components are going to replace, this is not training, it's just teasing. Components are going to replace application event handlers. That doesn't mean anything that have a starting and started weird method. So now we are going to have classes that are components that allow you to register things into Umbraco in a nice way. I haven't mentioned cleanup because I can't show you cleanup, but it's basically to experience cleanup, you have to work on the V8 code base for a while, create a website, etc., and then go back fixing an issue in version 7. And then you realize what cleanup means. Like you start crying. Like, why is it's not making any sense? I want to go back to V8. So that's the feeling we have at the moment. And that's the feeling we want you to have when you start working on V8. It doesn't have to be crazy. It doesn't have to be super hard. There's no pride in mastering the ugly details of Umbraco to do a website. You just want it to work in a simple way. Yeah, so that's basically the list of things I've tried to show you. It's coming to a server near you in a close future, hopefully quite soon. Again, the release cycle is going to be less official. It's public build. You use it. You look at the release notes. If you feel like that might be for me, try it. If you feel like it's maybe too early, wait another month or the next public build. And I think we're going to see a slow adoption of V8. Like some people are going to try it next month, find it cool enough, and start working with it. Some people are going to wait till 6 months next year. But we want to have a slow adoption. Yeah, that's it. I'm now open for tons of questions you may have, and see you at the next public build, end of this month. So the question is Models Builder still going to have the 3 modes? Is it like DLL, Pure Live, etc.? Yeah, that still exists. it's generating slightly different code because V8 is not the same underneath. As I said, models builder is a pretty stupid thing. Like, I mean, what it's generating is just, if you get property title, it returns value of title. That's all it does. So we had to change this, but apart from that, it's not changing much. Yep. So the original reason of variance is that when the whole thing was invented like 3-4 years ago, it was about varying by more than culture. The idea was to vary by segments. I have segmented data for A/B testing or whatever. The status of variance at the moment is the low-level APIs in Umbraco, like at database level, we support segments, so we've done that, that works. The service layer manages segments. But then when you start to build an API, a UI on top of that, basically we came to the conclusion that we don't know how to do it. Like it's insanely, there are tons of different ways to do it. It's insanely complex. And we don't know exactly what people want to do with it. So it's 8.0 is going to be multilingual, but we still call that variant because in our mind it means more than multilingual. But it's going to be purely multilingual in 8.0. And then we'll see, I would say, what happens, whether people start hooking into the APIs and create more things or nobody cares. We'll see. But that's the reason of that variance thing.
Hi. Sorry. You said that render MVC controller was kind of close. Can you hear me? Sorry. You said about the cleanup that render MVC controller was going away. Is that still a way to like hijack if we really wanted to? Sorry, you said about how render MVC controller was going away as part of the cleanup of the code. Did I mishear that?
The question is render MVC controller going away? But yeah, it's not going away. It's probably changing for a new name, but it's still working the same. The rendering pipeline is cleaned up, but basically everything that was there is still there. You can still hijack controllers, create your own controllers, etc.
New code, new cache, is just the site performance in general getting faster?
In theory, yes. The good thing, it's an interesting thing for us is we are entering benchmark stage. Like we are actually now benchmarking what we've done, which means we've made enough progress to start benchmarking. But yeah, it should definitely, like the whole caching layer, I did tests on it a year or two ago, and it's way faster than version 8. So we might see more improvements in terms of performance in the future.
What's the deal with XPath and searching?
So in version 7, XPath is the fastest way to look for content because you directly use the XML document, you go there. In version 8, XPath still work because we built something on top of the objects to pretend you can do XPath. But XPath is going to be slow. On the other hand, link is very slow in version 7 because you have to create objects all the time. That's slow. In version 8, the objects are there in memory all the time. So link is going to be super fast. So the fastest way to navigate the tree in version 8 is going to be link. And it's going to be as fast as a CPU can be. So in most cases, it's going to work. Now, of course, if you do what people love to do, like do content at root.descendants. Whatever, well, this is going to scan the entire tree. This is never going to be fast. Whatever we do, and you should move to like examine or things like that to see indexes. But so XPath is definitely going to be slow in the 8. It is there. We had XSLT. We've removed it, but you could run XSLT on top of new cache. Mainly, that was a political thing that we had to have to ease the transition, but it's never going to be released. was super slow.
There going to be any kind of upgrade wizard, script, whatever, to implement V8?
So this is a language exercise. Listen to me. There is no upgrade path. There is a migration path. That's very subtle. What we mean by that is there is no way you can upgrade a website. There are too many changes. Like in your views, we're not going to replace the methods by other methods. This is way too complex. By migration, what we mean is that we commit to upgrade the database. So if you remove all your custom code, you drop the V8 code in there, you restart the website, it's going to say, oh, you're running 7.12, we're going to upgrade to 8. And then all your views are going to be broken, everything, but your database, your data, what has value, is going to migrate to version 8. And then you're going to have to look into your views and change things. In, I would say, 80% of all cases, it is stupid work, like changing get property value, replace that with dot value, things like that. It's not, we're not changing concepts. It's not horrible to do. My website was started on version 7, and it's now running on latest version 8. And I did it. It took me, I don't know, half a day, but it was mostly renaming things, fixing a few issues. Well, that's it. So no upgrade, but a migration.
How different is the database from ESA?
How different is the database?
Yeah.
Well, of course, because we now have the variations, cultures, etc. The whole low-level database has changed. If you look at version 7, you will recognize it. I mean, we haven't redone the whole thing, but you'll see more rows here and there. I tend to believe it's cleaner also, like there are less redundancies with things. We're working on having better foreign keys, like indexes, things like that. So it's slightly different. Yeah. So if you're working directly on the database today, that will be more complex. We're not talking migration.
Will there be better support for testing, in particular unit testing out of the box?
Would there be support for testing?
Yeah, like, will you be exposing, making public the Umbraco unit testing access?
There will be some exposing of testing. We've started to refactor tests for our own usage, like to make them better. I think that's not the main priority right now. I have a nice test suite. For 8.0, it's going to be probably use what we have. It is on our list, definitely, because I think it's part of the experience, and a lot of people want to unit test their own site, reusing what we've done. I'd say this is more 8.1. Like, we want to do it, so it's going to be done. We don't think it is like vital today, and we have to make choices.
Is the shape of V8 now set, or you talked about you had loads of issues with wish list items and ideas? Has that now been cherry picked, and there's now a roadmap for how you're going to get the V8, or is there still time to get some of those bits back on the menu?
So is the question, can you still add things into 8.0 to the roadmap? Or?
Yeah, is it set and you know how long it's going to take to get you there, or is there still time for the community to push a few extra bits?
There is an and here that it is set, and we know how long it's going to take. These are two different things. It is set, but we're not sure how long it's going to take. But yeah, it is mostly set. We're not saying no to ideas, but mostly the answer we gave at the moment is if you have an idea and you can do it. That's fine. We can take it. That's what we've said last week about dependency injection. If you can do it, we'll be glad to take it. But we're not going to add more things, new ideas, because basically, we want to use 8 for everything we do, so it has to be available at one point. The backlog list is insane. We spent 4 years adding things to the backlog thing, so we really have to say, it's not training in the sense, sorry, we're not going to do this. It's like, it is impossible. If you try to do everything, you don't release. But if you have a bright idea, do it. PR.
You guys are making me go way too much back and forth.
My question is about the dictionary items regarding mental lingual. We've been using those, and I've read somewhere that was not a good idea because of performance. Is there improvement in that area?
We haven't done many things on dictionary items. But I think at the moment the 8 dictionary items are more or less the same as version 7. Maybe something we'll have to work on. I don't know. We don't have a lot of plans for dictionary items.
In V8, is there any upgrade or additions to forms in terms of blob storage or syncing into the database rather than having workflows, those types of things? Local storage?
I don't get it. Can you?
Yeah, so for V8 forms, has there been any improvements in forms or the ability to those files and blob storage from the system?
Let's say Forms is a separate product. So what's on the roadmap of V8 is make sure Forms, as it is currently, works on V8. Cloud, as it is currently, supports V8, etc., etc., etc. I don't know the Forms roadmap. That's another roadmap. We're not tying everything together, otherwise it can't work.
One last one.
Okay. Thank you very much, Stephan. And now we